Hello everyone, welcome once again to part 8 of this series on AutoCAD. In this particular session, we'll be looking at a few modifying tools in AutoCAD. We'll be learning how to use copy, move, erase, and a few other modifying tools in AutoCAD. I will be explaining in details how to use these important tools in AutoCAD. So, let's get started. Okay, welcome. All right, so now we want to learn our modifying tools. So the first modifying tools we'll be learning is what we have here, which is move. So now to move an object means we are changing the position. So an object is initially, so now I'm going to start by drawing a few objects. I click on circle, I click on arc, I click on rectangle. So now I have drawn 3 objects. Now, okay, modifying tool. So I want to modify by moving this object from one position to a different position. So now it does happen that while you are doing your drawing, you are doing your design, you might realize that an object is wrongly placed. So now you don't have to delete it and go and draw it again. All you need to do is move it from the original position to a new position. So move. So to do that, we'll be using our modifying tool called move. So now to click on to use move, I'll click on the tool move. Now, following closely with your command line, I've talked about the importance of command line. So if you have not yet to understand the importance of command line, please go and check the video on how to use the command line. It's very important that before you use your modifying tools, you need to learn how to use your command line. So go and check up my video on how to use the command line if you are yet to understand how to use the command line. So now we'll be working closely with our command line to get our instruction on how to use the move tool. So on the command line, it says select object. So I'll go ahead and select the object. We have also talked about object selection. So if you are yet to understand how to select objects, go and check the video on how to select objects so that you can be able to understand this particular class very well. All right, so I'm going to select my objects. Okay, so I'm selecting 2 objects. Now, once I'm done selecting my object, there is something that is very important for me to do. Once I'm done selecting my object, it's very important for me to press enter on my keyboard. Whether you press enter or you press space bar, you can either press enter on your keyboard or you press space bar on your keyboard. So I'm going to press enter on my keyboard. Now, the essence of pressing enter is to notify the software AutoCAD that you are done with your selection. So if you don't press the enter on your keyboard, now AutoCAD will still be waiting for you to make more selection. So, but by you pressing enter on your keyboard, you are telling the software that you are done with your selection. So it can give you the next instruction. Now, talking about the next instruction, what is our next instruction? Let's check the command line for that. Now, on the next instruction, it says specify base point. Specify base point. Now, when you are using move, base point means the point at which you want to lift the object, the point at which you will be picking up the object. So now I'll be using you can see my cursor. I'm picking it. I'm going to click on the point here. Now, the next thing for you to do is go and place the object in your new position. So I'm placing it here. All right, so now if you observe what I've done, I have moved 2 objects from one original position and I've gone to place it on a different location. So that's the move. So I'm going to be Ctrl Z. I'm going to press Ctrl Z on my keyboard to do this once again. So once again, I go to my move tool. I click on my move. Command line says select object. I go ahead and select object using any method of my choice. Once I'm done selecting the object, I press enter on my keyboard. Then the next thing says specify base point. So I go ahead and pick my reference point, my base point, the point at which I want to pick up the object. Then the next thing is for me to go and drop it anywhere on my new location. All right. By doing this, I've been able to move the object. So if you follow closely with the steps that I've done, you will see that move is a very simple tool for you to use. All right. So I'm going to Ctrl Z. So now next thing I'm going to do now is I'm going to teach you how to use copy. Copy is also a very important modifying tool. Copy is a very important modifying tool. Now, you would observe that when you are working with your modifying tool, it will always require you to select objects. So once again, if you don't know how to select objects, go and check the video on how to select object, on object selection in AutoCAD. All right. So now let's use copy now. Copy is very similar. To use copy, it's very similar to the way you use move. Now, when you look at the tooltip over here, you will see now copy. So when you are using copy, it means you are making replicates. You are making replicates or duplicates of the original object. So it's a bit different from copy, but it also has its similarities. Now, I click on copy, check your command line, it says select object. So now you can go ahead and make your selection. Once you are done with the selection, press enter on your keyboard. The next thing is to now choose specify base points. Base points means the reference points at which you want to pick up the object. So it can actually be anywhere around the object. So it's not advisable you go and pick your object far off. It's not advisable you pick a point far off. You pick a point around the object, if possible on the object. Pick a point. Now that point is your reference point. Then now the next thing is for you to go and place the object. So I will decide. Okay, so now you can see that I've made 3 different copies of my original object. I'm going to press escape now to stop, to terminate the tool copy. All right, so now what I've done now is I've been able to make 3 other duplicates of the original object. I'll be doing this once again, so Ctrl Z. Okay, this time I want to make a different object selection. So I click on copy, follow my command line which says select object. I select these 2 objects. Once I'm done selecting objects, I press enter or spacebar on my keyboard. On my keyboard, I press enter key or spacebar key. Now, once I press the enter key, my command line gives me a different instruction that says specify base point. So I'll go ahead. The base point is referring to the reference point from which I want to lift the object I want to select. So I'll pick anywhere around. Don't pick a place, a location that is far. Pick somewhere around the object. It can be here. All right. So the next thing is for me now to go and drop the object I've selected. Okay. I use my zoom there. Okay, so you can make several copies of an object. All right, so I'm going to press escape to terminate my copy too. All right, so here you can see that copy is a very effective way of performing your drawing operation. There are a lot of drawings that you'll be doing that you will require to use copy command. So now copy is very simple, and you can also notice that using copy and using move, they are very closely related. The same way you have used move is the same way you have used copy. The only difference between move and copy is that move is moving it, it's taking it from its original position to a new location, while copy is making a replicate of the original object, while the original object remains in its initial position. So that's the difference between using move and copy. All right. So now the next tool that we'll be looking at is also importantly a very useful tool. It's called erase. Erase. So now you want to erase an object. You want to erase an object. Don't forget the term object refers to whatsoever you draw, whether you have drawn a line, you have drawn an arc, you have drawn a circle, you have drawn a rectangle. General name is object. So now you want to delete or erase an object. Okay, so very easy to use. This is the erase tool. Click on the erase tool, follow your command line. It says select object, use any method of selection you want. Once you are done with your selection, press enter on your keyboard or spacebar. So that's all. So that's how to delete or erase an object. Very simple. I'll do Ctrl Z again to bring them back. So I want to erase. You can click on erase, select object. So you can determine the particular object you want to select. The particular object you want to select. So once you are done selection, press enter or press spacebar on your keyboard. So that's gone. So the object you have selected, it's gone. The object you have selected, it's gone. So now Ctrl Z again. So now another way you can erase is without using this erase tool, is just to go ahead and select your object. Go ahead and select your object and press delete on your keyboard. Delete key. No, instead of pressing the erase key, this time you are pressing the delete key. So go ahead and make your selection and press delete key on your keyboard. So this is another way of taking out some objects, that you don't need. All right. Okay. So finally, the last tool we'll be looking at in this session is the rotate tool. Rotate tool. So now we are going to learn how to use the rotate tool. So before I use the rotate tool, I will draw an object. Okay, let me draw something that looks like an arrow or some. Let me just draw an arrow. Not looks like it's an arrow. All right, so I'm going to close it up. All right, so now this is an arrow. All right, arrow. Now I did something over there. I panned my drawing. So now I'm going to be doing a video on how to pan, how to zoom and pan. I'll be doing a video. You can look up for the video if you don't know how to do that. All right, so now I want to rotate. I want to rotate now. I want to rotate. So I click on rotate. Don't forget, you have to follow your command line. If you are not used to the command line, please, if you're a beginner in AutoCAD, learn how to observe the command line. So I'm going to select objects. So now select objects, we have learned how to select objects. So press, select the object that, the entire object that you want to rotate. So once you are done selecting objects, don't forget this rule. Always press enter or spacebar. Generally, using your modifying tool, you want to say you are done selecting object, press enter or space bar. So now I'm done selecting object, I'm going to press enter. Now it's asking me for my command line, is asking me for my base point. Base point. So actually base point has different meaning. When you are using move, base point, you are using move or copy, base point refers to your reference points with which you want to lift it. But in rotate, your base point means your pivot. It means the pivot. It means the point about which you want to rotate. So that's what base point means when you are using rotate. So now I'm going to determine, depending on what you want, depending on the result, depending on how you want the result to be, you can decide your base point. Now, for instance, now I can decide to choose this point as my base point. I can decide to choose here. 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 I can decide to choose somewhere around the center. So anywhere could be your base point. But the particular choice you make will determine how the object will rotate. For instance, now if I choose here as my base point, now the next thing is now to rotate the object. So graphically, I can rotate the object, or I can decide to go ahead and rotate it at a particular angle. Let's assume on my keyboard I press 45, I enter digit 45 and I press enter. So now when you make an input on your command line, always remember to press enter. Enter signifies is telling AutoCAD to accept your input. So I press enter on my keyboard to accept 45 degree. All right. So now what it has done, it has rotated the object at 45 degree. Control Z to do it again. I want to rotate. I click on rotate, step 1. Step 2 is for me to check my command line that says select object. So I select the object I want to rotate. That's step 2. Step 3 is for me to press enter on my keyboard. Pressing enter is to tell AutoCAD that I'm done selecting. So I'm going to press enter or spacebar. Step 4, asking me to specify my base point. Base point means the point about which I want to rotate. This time I'm going to pick a point around here. So using my mouse, I pick a point. Now is now step 5 or step 6 now. Now the next step is for me to specify my rotation angle. So I can do this either graphically or using dimension. So dimension, I can say I want 90 degree. I want it to rotate 90 degree. Or if I want to do it graphically, I can just move my mouse to determine my desired position. But using dimension, I'll put 90 and I'll press enter. So now by doing that now, it has rotated it 90 degree. You will observe that the rotation is done anti-clockwise. Now this was the initial position. Okay, this was the initial position. And when I rotated, it became like this, 90 degree. It was initially like this. I rotated 90 degree and it became like this. So you will notice that it has rotated anti-clockwise. So in AutoCAD, anti-clockwise direction is the positive direction. So if I want to rotate clockwise, I'll be typing minus 90. So when you say minus a figure, that is the clockwise direction. But in AutoCAD, by default, anti-clockwise direction is the positive direction. Clockwise direction is the negative direction. So I can decide to use angle minus 30, angle minus 90. That means that minus signifies I'm going clockwise. But when you say 90, 70, 80, it means you are going anti-clockwise. So you can see that it has done this rotation in an anti-clockwise direction, which is the positive direction. All right, so it has done it. So if you want a clockwise direction, just put minus 90. Okay, so now that's also on the modifying tools for today. So now we have looked at how to use our move tool, how to use our copy tool, how to use erase, and how to use rotate. These tools are very important when you're working. Whatever you are doing with AutoCAD, it's very important. So if you enjoy this video, you can support this video by liking, by subscribing, and referring to a friend. You can also drop your comments. I'll be so much available to respond to whatever questions you have in your comment. So thank you. I'll see you in the next video.